Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. At the August 5th COVID-19 press conference, local officials updated the community on COVID-19 case levels and offered strategies on how to prevent contracting and spreading the virus. IU Health President Brian Shockney provided updates about COVID-19 hospitalizations at IU Health facilities in Bedford, Bloomington, and Paoli, stating that the majority of COVID hospitalizations are of vaccinated individuals. Shockney also shared how people can stop the spread of the virus by masking up while in public and to get vaccinated and boosted.
Our vaccinated to unvaccinated hospitalizations changed. We have high numbers of vaccinated patients in our hospital as compared to unvaccinated due to the variants we are experiencing currently. We know that vaccinations work, but not 100% of the time.
Director of Public Engagement Mary Catherine Carmichael discussed city updates and reported consistent results in wastewater testing through the Blucher Pool wastewater treatment plant. However, Carmichael said she expects the influx of students to disrupt the balance and increase contaminant numbers.
We do anticipate as part of the community fills up again with our returning students and other folks, we imagine that the Blucher Pool numbers will probably start climbing just because there are going to be more people that will be participating in that, whether they know it or not.
Monroe County Health Administrator Lori Kelly informed the panel of the progression of Indiana's county cases over the course of the summer, stating that Monroe County is now in the medium COVID level. Kelly also gave updates on the Indiana Department of Education's recommendations for schools.
The Indiana Department of Health school updates include no quarantine or contact tracing in K through 12 schools is currently being recommended. There are no recommendations for face coverings in schools or most communities. And schools can decide how to implement mask or other mitigation strategies based on local case counts or community levels.
Local journalist Dave Askins asked about the accuracy of Brian Shockney's statement of the increased rate of vaccinated individuals in hospitals and questioned how it translated to the message of getting vaccinated. Shockney replied that the current vaccine is not specifically targeted to the recent variants, but said he is hoping for more effective vaccines in the future. At the August 10th Monroe County Board of Commissioners meeting, board members read a public statement in opposition to the recently passed Senate Bill 1. Commissioner Julie Thomas condemned the near-total ban on abortion, saying she believes the legislation will have many negative repercussions for Indiana residents.
We do have a statement we'd like to make on the unfortunate passage of Senate Bill 1. We, the Monroe County Commissioners, are extremely disappointed in the legislation passed last week by the Indiana General Assembly, which bans virtually all abortions in Indiana. We predict that this legislation, which was rushed through in a special session and opposed by women's groups, doctors, small businesses, nurses, clergy, and others, will have many negative repercussions for Hoosiers. Within the last few days, both Eli Lilly and Cummins, two iconic Indiana employers, have expressed their opposition to this law.
The Board of Commissioners discussed Ordinance 2022-23 to amend the Monroe County Code regarding the Criminal Justice Response Committee. County Attorney Jeff Cockerell explained the ordinance.
This changes Code Section 457 in three ways. This was the Criminal Justice Response Committee. It renames that to the Community Justice Response Committee. That is change number one. Change number two is that the current committee only consists of council and commissioners appointments. So A and B on what you have in front of you. This adds 4 members of the Board of Judges, the sheriff or his designee, the prosecutor or his or her designee, public defender or his or her designee, and the jail commander or his designee, as well as the director of the health department or their designee. So it also, and the third thing it changes, it kind of expands the scope of what the previous was looking at. So we basically took out the the language that directs them to two of the intercepts and looking at the entire criminal justice study as a whole and its implementation. These changes were recommended at the last Criminal Justice Response Committee, which after the next one, I'll call the Community Justice Response Committee, as a way to keep moving forward and expanding the scope of what they're talking about. I think that group has run into a lot of conversations where they really felt like they needed that additional knowledge base on the committee.
Commissioner Lee Jones said she agreed with the expansion of the committee.
The work of this committee is very important to our community, and I think it'll move forward much more quickly if we expand the committee like this. At the time that it was originally formed, we didn't realize that we would be looking at building a new jail quite so quickly. So that's why its scope was somewhat limited. Now that we do know that we're going to have to be considering a new jail, it makes sense for this committee to also work on that project.
County Commissioner Julie Thomas said she believes this is an important step in communicating with the community when it comes to the county's criminal justice response. During public comment, Jim Shelton of Court-Appointed Special Advocates, or CASA, said he hopes the commissioners approve the ordinance.
I want to encourage you to approve this. This greatly expands what they're going to, or makes more active what they're going to be working on. We need to, I've been a CASA for 10 years. Every case that I've had, the parents have been involved in the criminal justice system as well as in the juvenile system. So I've seen a lot about what the drawbacks are of incarcerating people who are addicted. They don't get better. Typically, they still have the same problem when they get out. And so it's really important, and obviously you guys agree, that we do everything we can to have alternatives to incarcerating somebody. And that's a good part of what they're going to be working on now. It's going to be very complicated, very difficult. And I applaud this move to try to get everybody more or less involved. And I think you'll have a lot better opportunity to get the community involved when they see that the judges and the prosecutor and the sheriff and the jail, et cetera, are involved. And I think it's great to have the health administrator involved too, because again, a lot of the reasons that people are in jail are because of health reasons, primarily mental health and addiction. So please approve this, and I applaud you and Mr. Cockrell and the Criminal Justice Response Committee for bringing this forward. Thanks.
The Board of Commissioners approved the ordinance. And we'll have more Cats Week after this message.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the CASAs to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone, and it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to Cats Week. The Monroe County Council met in their regular session on August 9th. At the meeting, President of the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce, Eric Spoonmore, presented the city's proposal to buy property from the county where the new convention center will be built. He said the project had stalled since 2017 when the county levied a food and beverage tax to fund the new convention center. He outlined the roles of local governing bodies in moving the new proposal forward.
As you know, the county commissioners and the county council play critical roles in the convention center expansion process. The commissioners, for all intents and purposes, own the land and the convention center assets. And the county council has authority over the food and beverage tax funding mechanism. In addition, the city of Bloomington has an equally important role to play because it holds the food and beverage tax revenue that's been earmarked for the expansion of the convention center.
Deputy Mayor Don Griffin described the city's vision for the exchange.
Let me give you a little bit about the presentation, to let you know what we're thinking. As part of the proposal, the city would take full responsibility for the expansion in exchange for the county transferring ownership and management of the convention center and supporting properties. Under this proposal, the city of Bloomington would pay off the county's existing debt on the convention center, estimated at around $2 million. Number two, contribute to the Monroe County Health Department the opioid settlement funds received by the city, estimated to be $1.9 million over the next 18 years, to support them in a more consolidated effort to address opioid addiction and recovery in Monroe County. Number three, initiate a multi-year pilot program to expand Bloomington Transit beyond city limits along the east-west corridor to provide improved access to Ivy Tech and nearby employers. The city would charge only the incremental cost of the additional services. Number four, we would assume responsibility for all operations and management of the existing and new expanded convention center. Now, for its part, the county would do the following, or we're asking the county to please do the following. Transfer to the city all real and personal property owned by the county or building corporation comprising the current convention center and property designated for potential future convention center use. Next, support the annual transfer to the city or its designated property management entity, the share of the annual innkeeper's tax received by the county currently used in maintaining and operating the convention center. Number three, retain its share of food and beverage tax generated outside city limits for the county's own appropriate purposes.
Member of the county's Convention and Visitors Commission, Mike Campbell, and Executive Director of Downtown Bloomington Incorporated, Talisha Kopic, both said the convention center is unique in its ability to bring business to downtown Bloomington. Executive Director of Visit Bloomington, Mike McAfee, said he's had to turn away 10 different groups this year, either because the convention center was too small or was not available on the dates that they were interested in. He said a larger convention center was needed to meet that demand.
We're in the lowest tier possible. I mean, that's how small we are. We're trying to jump up a tier and be able to host groups of 300 or 400 comfortably.
County Council member Cheryl Munson called the food and beverage tax, which was enacted in 2017 to support convention center expansion, a substantial and dependable source of revenue. But she worried the Indiana legislature might end the tax if Bloomington and Monroe County do not make progress.
I am concerned that we may lose the food and beverage tax by having it sunsetted by the General Assembly. I think we all might remember that this was an item of discussion, serious discussion in the last legislature. Our representatives for Monroe County were able to quash this last year. I don't know what is going to happen last year, but I think we need to be able to show the state legislature that we have progress moving forward.
Councilmember Peter Iverson praised the presentation as a sign of collaboration. He said he appreciated that the plan focused on values the city and county have in common, like addressing the opioid epidemic and expanding public transit. However, Iverson also had some questions about the city's proposal.
My first category of questions is about timing. When is a body going to be created? When is when can we get this done? There are elections coming up that we need to be mindful of. There are all sorts of things that we need to be mindful of. The second category of questions is that of clarity. I think it's a good faith effort that dollar amounts have been provided in here. I think that gives the public a lot of hope that this can be done. I think that something can be done here. Like I said before, I'm bullish on our ability to do this. And I think we can come to some clarity on some of these items coming forward. And then the third item is the cost. I think Ms. Munson was talking a little bit about this, and I want to make sure that we are, my questions revolve around some of the costs that exist, some of the valuations on properties and things of that sort that obviously, maybe we don't have answers for today, but then we can suss out in the future.
Several other council members had questions about the plan as well. Both Munson and Councilmember Jeff McKim wondered which specific properties the city hoped to purchase. McKim said the county had acquired more land than would likely be used to build out the convention center, and he'd be concerned about transferring all that land to the city. Councilmember Marty Hawk was skeptical about the legal ramifications of the exchange and whether it had a political path forward.
First step, are the commissioners going to be interested? Don't take up our legal department's time doing anything if the commissioners are not going to go forward, because that costs taxpayer money.
Later in the meeting, the council voted unanimously to recommend a 5% cost of living adjustment for Monroe County government employees next year. Iverson said that anecdotally, that raise is on par with what area nonprofits are offering their employees.
I've been talking to people around the community, and it seems like, based on the people I'm talking to, small sample size, in bias from who I'm talking to, is that people or entities around town are looking around a 4 to 5% increase in cost of living. I think we're kind of right on what if we're going to benchmark in our community, I think that we're kind of square on the nose there. And, in terms of giving our employees what other folks are getting in the community.
That 5% number will be reviewed by the county commissioners, and the council may revisit it in their budget. The council unanimously approved the Parks and Recreation Department's request to use $6,500 to purchase 2 Americans with Disabilities Act compliant portable toilets for county parks. Parks Department Director Kelly Whitmer explained the importance of accessible restrooms.
This request is not a large ticket item, but it's very important to many people to go to the restroom while they're using the Cars Farm Greenway or the Limestone Greenway.
The Limestone Greenway facilities will be installed at the Sheriff's Substation, and the Cars Farm Greenway facilities will be installed at the Loesch Road Trailhead. The County Council will convene again for a work session on August 23rd. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying.
I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell.
But with Girls Inc. in my corner,
I will not be another statistic.
I will fight for myself.
With you in my corner, I will win.
Fuel her fire and she will change the world. Girls Inc.
Welcome back to CATSweek. 4 members of the Bloomington City Council met on August 10th. That's not enough to meet quorum. Although the council could not take official action, the 4 council members present, Susan Sandberg, Jim Sims, Dave Rollo, and Ron Smith, listened to a presentation by Historic Preservation Program Manager Gloria Colombrania. The presentation detailed the petition to designate the Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church and Parsonage at 702 and 708 North Rogers Street as a local historic district. Colombrania said the Bloomington Historic Preservation Commission supported the designation.
the staff wholeheartedly recommends that the property known as Bethel AME Church and its parsonage be designated as a local historic district. After careful consideration of the application and review of the historic district criteria as found in Ordinance 9520 of the Municipal Code, staff finds that the property not only meets but exceeds the minimum criteria listed on the code.
Colombrania described the significance and remarkable history of the church.
In this case, the church provided a safe communal space for many members of Bloomington's Black community in the early 20th century and before and until this day. And prominent members such as Mrs. Mattie Jacobs Fuller raised a considerable amount of money to make sure that the congregation owned both the land and the building. And by considerable, I mean $13,000 in 1920s, 30s day, which translates to about $200,000. And she did this by performing on her organ, which still, and the congregation can correct me, still exists within the building, within the church.
Colombrania said that when it was built, the Bethel AME Church provided community both for longtime Bloomington residents and for Black students at Indiana University.
At a time when there were maybe 8 or 10 Black university students here in Bloomington, and they came from all over Indiana and all over the United States, they would come to the church for dinner at least once a week, and they would have a community to bond with.
According to Colombrania, ownership of the church itself was a powerful symbol. When the congregation paid off the mortgage for the land and the construction, they held a mortgage burning ceremony.
That is also something very symbolic, the ownership of land, the carving out the space and really making it home. We are here, this is ours, we are here to stay.
Congregation member Nancy Cross Harris has been part of Bethel for over 30 years. She said the congregation is still active in worship and in service.
We have a mission that we carry on within, the building itself. It's beautiful again and as pretty as it is. We, as Christians there, serve and we minister to and spiritually, intellectually, physical, emotional, and environmental needs of all people by spreading Christ's liberating gospel through word and deed. Okay? Seeking out the lost and serving the needs of those in prisons, hospitals, nursing homes, the sick and shut in, community street corners, and school systems. So, we try not to leave anyone out, any stone unturned.
At the end of the meeting, Sims shared his own history with the African Methodist Episcopal Church.
The AME Church was founded in 1787 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, by a small group of people led by a gentleman named Mr. Richard Allen. I happen to be very happy to know some of this history, because even though I am a very proud and dedicated member of Second Baptist Church here in Bloomington, I was born and raised at Bethel AME in Muncie, Indiana.
All 4 council members in attendance indicated that they would vote in favor of designating the property as a local historic district. Council President Susan Sandberg said she expected the ordinance to pass.
Obviously, this meets all of the criteria for historic designation. I think this is going to be a pretty simple vote when we get to it next week.
The Bloomington Arts Commission met on Wednesday, August 10th, to approve budgetary spending for the next year and to promote public arts. Assistant Director for the Arts, Holly Warren, outlined the budgetary standing of the Commission for the rest of the year. She cited the recent income tax increase as a means to help pay for more public arts projects.
What other kinds of public arts projects can we do in the city that will allow for participation from groups like K-12 groups, so from schools, from places like the Boys and Girls Clubs? How can we give them opportunities to participate in the creation of public arts? And how can we give artists that we know exist in the community that would be good at mentoring the opportunity to lead those projects and then kind of be the leaders of these groups to create a public mural or something like that.
BAC's Public Arts Chair, Nick Blandford, brought up institutional changes in the commission's structure. He discussed the confusion over who occupies certain roles and how inefficient the current process is. Blandford did offer some constructive criticism. However, he praised the leaps forward in diversity that the commission has made.
I feel like I will have left something like on the table if I cycle off, and some of these structural things that have been disrupted by COVID and difficulty keeping things like staffed. I will feel like a personal failure if we don't address some of that stuff, you know, and just sort of like the leave it better than you came to it.
And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.